Hello and welcome viewers and subscribers of AVG News. My name is Olisi, the son of Nobe, and I hope you are having a wonderful week, Friday, wherever you are. Anyway, we're just close to a weekend. Like as we promised on the Facebook page, we need to review some bit of the politics from Africa, and today we have a hot topic again from Zimbabwe. I know that many of you have had their eyes glued on Zimbabwe, especially at the backdrop of an election that produced a number of contestations, because there is a number of also some protests that have been planned. There is a number of activities that people are looking forward to see if CCC, as the mainstream opposition, which got a number of seats, are going to go forward and carry on with their threats to dismiss or reject in total the results of the 2023 elections. So this is what we're going to review. We're going to talk about the continuing repression in Zimbabwe. We're going to talk about the SADC observer or the SADC report. We're going to look at the latest that has been happening back home. We're going to talk about political violence. But before I go ahead, can I kindly request you to subscribe to this channel, to like this video, and to share it. The idea also is to have you involved in these discussions. You may not like some of the things that I say, but if you have an alternative view, kindly use the comment section on the side of this bar, and then we engage on that. Like I said, I'm just human. I have my own knowledge, of course, based on the experience that I've had covering African politics, covering African affairs, and this is what I'm going to be using. I'm not here as an expert of any sort, but I'm here to steer a debate. I'm here to moderate a debate. I'm here to also enlighten those that may have been misled. So this is the reason why I came on board. As I have said already, there is a number of issues or incidents which point to a gloomy 5 years for Zimbabwe, especially when we talk about issues of continuing repression. You know that when it comes to political repression, Zimbabwe is one of the worst African countries, or one of the worst countries in the world. We have political intolerance in the country, and we have a state that is heavy-handed when it comes to dealing with issues of political misunderstandings, let me say, or diverse political views. And the reports that we are getting, some of them verified and others not, are that there is seemingly a concerted effort to continue harassing members of the mainstream opposition party, that is the Citizens Coalition for Change, led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. You know that CCC were the party that was closest to challenging ZANU-PF in the just ended election, and they were seen as the biggest threat. They continue to be seen as the biggest threat to ZANU-PF power. So after the elections, what we are getting is that some members of CCC, especially those who contested the just ended election, have been targeted. The first is a former candidate in one of the rural Mashonaland areas, who is said to have been abducted by members of, or alleged members of, the state security in Zimbabwe. This person was abducted, beaten up, and was allegedly injected with some substance. We don't know exactly what kind of substance that is, but what we are told is that he was badly injured during the assault, and also he was injected with this kind of stance. He is not well as we speak right now. And then what happens? He was not the only one. There were a number of them that were abducted, beaten up allegedly. And then some lawyers who represented them, human rights lawyers, because you know that this is a human rights issue. Some human rights lawyers, two of them, let me say, Mr. Doug Coltart and Tapiwa Muchineripi were representing this person. The guy that was beaten up is a CCC Ward 27 councillor in one of the Mashonaland provinces. I'll get it up and then talk and then mention what it is, exactly which place it is. But this guy, Mr. Nimbe, was beaten up. He was abducted. He was injected with this kind of a substance, and then some of the guys, or some of the CCC guys as well, were assaulted, and police tried to extract information from them while they just come from hospital and they were still intoxicated by some sedatives. So their lawyers, that is Douglas Coltart and Tapiwa Muchineripi, said, no, there is no way that these people can be expected to be interrogated in this situation or in this with these sedatives still in their body, because we believe that they're not in the right state of mind to have their statements recorded. But these lawyers, these two lawyers, were arrested a few days ago. They spent one night in police cells. They were charged with obstructing justice. They slept there. The following morning, they were taken to court being charged with obstructing justice, and they were released each on $200 bail. Now we are having one former candidate or a former contestant for a ward council seat who gets abducted, he gets beaten up, he gets tortured, he gets injected with this substance which has not yet been identified. And then we have two others beaten up after their abduction, and police want to extract some information from them while they're still in this state. The lawyers say, and logically so, that these people cannot be expected to, in this particular state, give statements. And then the lawyers get arrested, charged. And then we have also some reports. There's a voice note that is doing the rounds on social media, where a former ward council candidate in Umkuza, that is Matepele North, has been threatened with eviction from his area. Not only him, but many others who have been accused of supporting the mainstream opposition, that is CCC. They have all been threatened with eviction, according to what we're getting from voice notes from villagers there and an alleged ZANU-PF member. They are saying that these people should leave that area because they are apparently enemies of the state, just because they belong to a party that challenged the incumbent. We also have a number of other incidences of alleged violence. You will remember that there is a police officer who was taken to task by a deputy minister, Miss Barbara Rodzi, for arresting a ZANU-PF activist called Danger for political violence activities. And this police officer was threatened, he was called stupid, he was called all sorts of names by the deputy minister. Now we are told that the police officer has disappeared, and police have released an internal memorandum saying that wherever he's found, he must be arrested and detained. But nothing has been said on whether this policeman, who did nothing wrong, but did everything that is required of in the law to arrest people for political violence, prepare dockets for them and take them to court. Yes, now nothing has been said about his safety. All that has been said is that he has gone absent without official leave and therefore he must be arrested and detained. So this is another again form of repression that is continuing. We also have, as a matter of yesterday, the CCC national spokesperson, Mr. Promise Dalubuhle Mkhwanazi. You know, many of you that have been following the post-election happenings in Zimbabwe will remember the aborted CCC presser in Harare at the Sapes Trust, where members or suspected members of the Forever Associates of Zimbabwe, which is FAZ, stormed the stage, tried to take away a speech that Promise was reading. They were, of course, overpowered by members of CCC. They didn't beat them up, but they told them to leave the stage. Now, after that, police released a statement that they wanted to arrest Promise Mkhwanazi for some allegations dating back 3 years ago, that is 2020. One now wonders why they had to wait all this long, because Mr. Mkhwanazi has been living in Zimbabwe. Everyone knows that he's been in Zimbabwe. He's been very active from the NGO sector, pro-democracy NGO sector, and nothing has been, police knew where he was. They never tried to effect this so-called warrant of arrest. But as soon as he's appointed spokesperson of the mainstream opposition, then these things happen. But how do they happen? First and foremost, they are caused for him while he's busy reading a speech at a press conference. They don't wait for him to finish and then try and effect the arrest. They interrupted rudely a press release, a press conference that he was conducting, and tried to stop him. Instead of even introducing themselves and trying to arrest him, what do? They rush in there, try to take away the speech that he was reading. And then only after that do they then tell us that these two were not FAZ members, they were police officers who were trying to arrest Promise because there is a warrant of arrest against him. Why were they quiet all along to wait until he's appointed spokesperson of the mainstream opposition? Is there something that is scared of him? We don't know. But now another police statement was released yesterday to the effect that Mr. Mkhwanazi is being sought for a number of other cases and that he must be arrested, and a reward, we are told that a reward as well has been offered for anyone who is going to give out information leading to his arrest. And eventually, Mkhwanazi wrote yesterday on the microblogging site X that he has temporarily left Zimbabwe because there are these concerted efforts to try and get rid of him or to try and arrest him. And we know that when the political temperatures are so high in Zimbabwe, once a powerful opposition figure or activist or human rights activist gets arrested, usually their life is put in danger. And this is not the first time that Mr. Mkhwanazi has been targeted by state security agents in Zimbabwe, as well as ZANU-PF militias. He has had a number of times when he has been arrested, he's been beaten up. He knows firsthand how painful that is, and instead he has decided that for his safety and the safety of his family, he has to skip the border and pursue his fight for democracy from outside Zimbabwe. We don't know exactly where he is, and he hasn't said where he is, but we hope and pray for his safety and his safe return to Zimbabwe, because the fight for democracy is not only for him, but the rest of Zimbabwe. And the fight for democracy is not going to end, or we don't expect it to end with his hunting down or him deciding to take some sabbatical from Zimbabwe. It is a very painful, very, very painful incident, because one would believe that after the elections have been conducted and Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF have been declared winners, despite all this controversy surrounding the elections, despite all these gross irregularities which have been pointed out by several observer missions, an atmosphere of calm would return to Zimbabwe, and those that have been declared winners would start working towards uniting the people, towards progressive politics, towards focusing on administration and trying to revive the economy of Zimbabwe. Because right now, the last thing that Zimbabwe needs is this kind of behavior from the ruling party, which scares away the people, which scares away investors, which also continues to taint the image of the country, especially with the international community, whose engagements we need so much. Because it is one thing to say that the elections have been grossly mismanaged, and it is entirely another to say, coming back from a background of a highly disputed election, then you go ahead and continue repression. Because at the end of the day, these are Zimbabweans. They have a stake in Zimbabwe. They want a working Zimbabwe. And therefore, if you don't agree with what they are saying, there is a way of dealing with them. If you believe that they have committed an offense, there is a way of constitutionally and legally dealing with them. Not this issue of arresting people, this issue of torturing people, this issue of injecting people with unknown substances, which are obviously harmful to their health. So our appeal to President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the law enforcement agents in Zimbabwe is that you have the power, but that is not the power for you to abuse. It is the power for you to use to make the country workable, to make Zimbabwean citizens live a safe life in a safe environment, to enable Zimbabweans to live a progressive life, to prosper in their motherland, not to keep them under constant fear of harassment, of cooked up charges, of arrests that are not even necessary, or in fear of death. So our appeal to the Zimbabwean government is to safeguard the lives of a people, also to allow for personal freedoms in the country. The elections have come and gone. There are people who have grievances. Instead of trying to silence them, why not engage them? Why not sit down with them, listen to them? Because one thing for a fact is that a number of people are dissatisfied with the way the elections were conducted. A number of people are dissatisfied with the result that was given. So the best way to do this is to at least sit down with them, try and work a solution to these grievances, because beating up people can only worsen the situation. The second thing is about the SADC report that has been well spoken about, and now what has been said, especially in the streets of social media, is that the report, or that the SADC has already decided that Zimbabwean elections are null and void, and therefore there must be a fresh election. We have always said to you that our aim for this channel is not to misinform. Our aim for this channel is to sieve the lies from the truth. Our aim is to fight disinformation. Right now, the state of the SADC report is that the SADC Election Observer Mission, that is your SEOM, led by Dr. Nevas Mumba, has written its final report, and it has handed the report over to the SADC chair of the organ on politics, that is President of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema. He cannot on his own take any decision on the report. So now I want to tell you what exactly has to happen with this report. I know many of you may not like that because you've been given some contrasting messages in as far as this report is concerned. And I realize that there are a number of embedded journalists, especially when it comes to Zimbabwean politics, who would want to get some views from disinforming or misinforming people. There are a number of journalists who are embedded who would want to drive a certain narrative about Zimbabwe. But we want for you to disagree with us based on the truth that we're going to tell you, based on the correct information. So there are steps that have to be taken before this SADC Observer mission report can be viewed as a SADC report. The first is we have to understand that the SADC Electoral Observer mission is not SADC. It is a group of emissaries sent by the regional bloc to observe elections conducted by and in a member state. After observing, they write a preliminary report which has to be presented soon after the elections have been conducted. This is what Dr. Nevas Mumba read out while he was still in Harare. After that, they have to be there in the country for at least 7 days, observing the after or the post-election environment. After that, they are then expected to write a final report. Now they have presented the preliminary report. They have also written the final report. That final report is then handed over to the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense, security, and cooperation. That is your president, HH. Then after the report has been presented, it is then taken to the SADC foreign affairs ministers who sit as a council. They convene a council, they discuss the report. After that, they forward the report to the chair of the SADC organ on politics. That is the one that they have presented themselves with, based on the one that they got from, which was written from the SEOM, which was handed over to them by the president, the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense, and security cooperation. Then they hand it over to the organ, which has 3 members. Right now, it's HH as the chair, President H. Jacob, who is the Namibian president and is the last immediate chair, who handed over to HH, and Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, who is the president of Tanzania, who is also the next chairperson of the organ. Now you'll remember that the other 2, that is the Namibian president and the Tanzanian president, have already congratulated President Mnangagwa. But anyway, that doesn't mean anything because they have to sit down and deliberate on the report. After that, they hand it over to the Troika, which subsequently submits it to the SADC summit, where it must be discussed and amended or endorsed. It can also be rejected. So now the SADC summit, which in this instance sits in June next year in Zimbabwe, has to sit down, discuss the report, taking into consideration a countering report which will be required from ZANU-PF and probably the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to answer on the allegations raised in the SADC Election Observer Mission report. Then the SADC summit will deliberate on the report, make some endorsements to it based on the SADC protocol on politics and elections. They make those amendments where needs be. They make endorsements where needs be, or reject the report. So only after the SADC summit has endorsed the report can it then be referred to as the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections. So right now, the Council of Ministers hasn't said, although the report has been handed over to HH, the Council of Ministers hasn't said, the Troika hasn't said, and the SADC summit hasn't said. So there is no SADC report on Zimbabwean elections at this stage because nothing has been adopted. We had to make that clear to you. Now, the next chairperson of SADC at the summit is the Zimbabwean president, and that for now is President Emmerson Mnangagwa. But right now, there is a possibility that if the situation in Zimbabwe reaches crisis stage, there might be a need for a special summit on Zimbabwe, a SADC special summit on Zimbabwe. Those who were already wise enough after 2008 election where the Zimbabwean situation reached a crisis level, you will remember that there were a number of SADC special summits, especially here in South Africa, where they used to sit at the Sandton Convention Center and review the situation in Zimbabwe. So if needs be, especially with these escalating reports of political violence on the opposition, there might be such a need of a SADC special summit on Zimbabwe. And you'll remember also that the mainstream opposition, that is CCC, has already written a petition to the SADC bloc, raising some issues with the contested election results in Zimbabwe and also the unfair political playing field and the gross mismanagement of Zimbabwean elections by the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission. So the SADC can decide that the issues that have been raised here, they also gave a reason why they wouldn't seek recourse in Zimbabwean courts, which according to them are already captured and singing the tune or dancing to the tune of the incumbent. So SADC can review that document that they presented and say, okay, perhaps we need to sit down. June next year is too far, and then they can conduct or convene a SADC special summit on Zimbabwe. The other silver lining on this dark cloud is that despite their public support for ZANU-PF and President Emmerson Mnangagwa, the African National Congress has, according to those sources privy to the information, begun to engage with their ZANU-PF counterparts to say the direction you are taking as a former liberation movement is not the direction you are supposed to be taking, is not the direction we would support you in taking, is not the direction Zimbabwe needs for you to take at this particular moment. There is some underhand discussions, some covert discussions between the two sister parties to try and resolve the situation in Zimbabwe. And this obviously will also include the complaints that have been raised by the mainstream opposition, or rather the opposition, because almost every opposition party has raised something about the way the elections in Zimbabwe were mishandled. They will also consider the observer mission reports, because every observer mission that went to Zimbabwe had something to say in the manner that the elections were handled or mishandled. So we hope that something good is going to come out of this. But what we are going to urge you to do is to observe the peace, to continue with your advocacy efforts without trashing the country in a manner that will worsen the economic situation there, because at the end of the day, politics and political parties will come and go, but there will always be one thing that unites us as a people. It is a country that we all belong to. It is a country that we all ought to be combining our efforts in rebuilding, regardless of who is governing us. Then this takes us to the next worrying issue. Some of you have already heard that yesterday there were clashes in Harare at the swearing in of Harare City Council councillors. There were clashes between a group of ZANU-PF supporters and a group of CCC supporters. We are not going to get into the nitty-gritties of who is wrong or who is right, but once you find yourself engaging in a collision, it means that you are both wrong. We must exercise restraint. People were injured yesterday. Some were arrested yesterday. And this is not what we need. We ought to think like mature people. We ought to think like educated people. And we ought to think and behave like a focused people. Let's not fight for politics. Let us not fight over politicians. Let us not fight over political ideologies which might be diverse as they always are supposed to be. Let us engage each other. For starters, there was no reason for either set of supporters to be found singing and insulting the other party in the city center. We need to understand that we are the laughing stock of the whole world right now, Zimbabweans. Let us behave like a mature people. Let us show that despite the limitations in leadership that we have, despite the challenges that we are all focused on rebuilding that beautiful country. It is a beautiful country. It will remain a beautiful country, but only if we want to work towards making it this beautiful country. Now, this is what I heard, but I will read some comments that have been posted here and try and see if there are questions. I'm gonna try and answer them. The first one is from Simba Mukandatsama, something like that. It's sadness and nothing. We are tired of this. Yes, we are tired of this, but how we get out of it is all up to us. One thing that I will advise is, if you are dealing with a people who want violence, don't give it to them, because they are always prepared. They will bring you down to their level, and they are going to defeat you with experience and preparedness. Batsirai Maunganidze says, if they were police, what caused them to not arrest him? Because one has power to stop police to do their, no one has power to stop police to do their work. They wanted to arrest him. Why did they took the speech? Exactly. We only got to understand it later that these guys were actually police officers from the law and order department. Even though they are police officers, even though they are law and order, there is a way that you arrest somebody. For starters, you do it in a professional manner. If Mkwananzi was supposed to be arrested, or there was a warrant of arrest against him, what they would have done, having found him at a venue reading a speech, they would have waited for him to finish, because it's the image of Zimbabwe that has been tainted now. You finish, allow the cameras to go, and then you go to him, you introduce yourself. I am so and so, a police officer from Law and Order Department, and I am here to arrest you. You are now under arrest based on a charge of this, that, and that. You don't storm a stage where somebody is reading a speech in front of all these cameras. international cameras, and you grab the speech. You don't arrest a speech. So that was conduct unbecoming of a police officer. The way the ZRP has behaved in this Promise Mkwananzi issue is unbecoming of a professional police force. We have to be truthful. We have to be honest with each other, regardless of whatever reaction is going to get from them. But the fact is, those guys behaved unprofessionally. The whole force has behaved unprofessionally in the Promise Mkwananzi issue. Then ZANU-PF acts as if Zimbabwe is their private property. That's the biggest problem. And when you raise some of these issues, you are told that we fought for you, we went to war. You are then given a long lecture about historical truths and fallacies of the liberation struggle. We are saying, fine, you fought. We appreciate that. Although some of us were not yet born and therefore could not have fought. You fought because you were under oppression. You fought because you wanted to free yourself. You have freed yourself. Allow us then to determine who should take charge of our country, because we are not lesser of Zimbabweans before because we were young. We were too young to go to war. We were not yet born during the time of the liberation struggle. You are not more of Zimbabweans than us because you had a time to go to war. There are people who died in that war. You are lucky that you are alive. You are lucky that you've been governing the country for so long. But when people are tired of you because you've run out of ideas, because you've reached ideological menopause, allow them to take over. They're not gonna mistreat you, but what they're going to do is they're going to rebuild and even make you proud. I like your channel because you don't work with speculations. Be blessed. Thank you very much. We really appreciate such comments, but we also appreciate the criticism that some are giving us. But the idea, as I've said, is that we want to inform, not to misinform or disinform, because we value you a lot. There is 8,000 of you who have subscribed to this channel because you like the content that we give you. We value you. You are the most important people. You are the most important people that keep us going. You keep us looking for content. You keep us contacting professionals and experts in some of these topics. You also widen our knowledge. So we really appreciate you. There's no way we're going to try and take advantage of you. There's no way we'll try and mislead you, because once we start misleading you deliberately, it means that we don't value you, but also it means we don't respect you. Our belief is that you are the most respected people on this channel. You are the people that we must respect the most on this channel, because you keep us going, you keep us searching for more, you keep us widening our knowledge on these issues and others. So thank you very much. This is what we had. Let us meet again next week. But don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Don't throw yourselves in the line of danger. Thank you very much.